Greetings, greetings. So this, I believe, there's been a bit of a gap between the Arse Action for Andrew videos. This, I believe, is number 6. And it's just a small, short, rather than small, side-lying sequence. So I come to lying on your sides. So these are very much for the glute medius muscle. The most important thing is your setup. And it's the thing that most people miss. So you want, if you look down at your knees, you want them exactly on top of each other. You want your ankles on top of each other, and you want a kind of 90-degree angle on this. So we're stacking, right? We're stacking. The top knee is stacked over the bottom knee and ditto with the ankle. So we want to do the same with the hips. Now, what happens naturally in this situation is, and you can see me doing it, hopefully, is that you sink down towards the floor. So the side of the waist hits the floor, and this top hip, you get the sensation of the top hip coming up towards the armpit. And so I'm now on a bit of a tilt. I need to stack this top hip. This top hip needs to be directly on top of the bottom one. So what I'll need to do is I need to send this top hip away, like down the end of the mat. And as I do that and send that away, the pressure comes off this side waist. Now, we need to maintain this. So I hope you'll feel the muscle engagement when you've done that. There's some belly that needs to be involved. And you're trying to maintain that all the time. So keep checking it throughout the sequence. I will remind you, but keep checking it. And then the other thing we need to do is we need to make sure this top shoulder stays out of it. We're trying to just make the arse muscle work. So you're trying to keep the top shoulder out of it. Now, you could kind of put your hand down by your belly and try and draw the shoulder down, or you could just have your arm resting on your bottom. And it's quite nice to get some feedback sometimes. So sometimes, particularly when you first start these exercises, often you can't even feel the glutes engage. So sometimes it's quite nice to just have your hand there so you get the feedback of the muscle engaging. And then the other thing that people sometimes do is they come up like this. Now, if you come up like that, you can see, I can't then send this top hip away. I'm now pushing down on the side waist. So you need to be down, resting your hand on your arm. You're stacking everything. You're sending that top hip away. And the first exercise, one more thing. You want to keep the torso still. So the other thing that I see people do a lot is they roll backwards when they're doing this. You're trying to keep everything still apart from the movement of the leg that we're about to do. So heels are stacked, knees are stacked, hips are stacked. You've sent that top hip away. You're resting your head down on your arms and you're keeping your body still. And the first one is clam. So you lift the top knee. Now I can't go, if I'm keeping everything else still, I can't go any more than that. So don't get tempted to roll back to lift the knee higher. That's not the name of the game. So you're lifting the knee and you're popping it back down. I tend to use the natural rhythm of my breath to count. And we're going to start with 5 of each of these. Boom. Okay, so once you've done 5 of your clam, I'm going to do another one for good luck. You're still sending that top hip away. You squeeze the thighs and the shins together and you lift the shins to the sky. So I haven't collapsed down on this side waist. And then you go again. That top knee comes up nice and slow. Often people bang out things. And there's a place for banging out stuff, but there's also a place for going slow. And in some of these exercises, you work a lot harder if you go slow. Now I think that is number 5. And then we're going to float this top leg. So just release the bottom one down to the floor. Think about the shin being heavy and the foot being heavy. So what people tend to do in this is they tend to swivel, drop the knee and lift the shin. So we're not doing that. We're trying to keep the whole leg parallel with the floor. And I have found if you make the foot heavy and the shin heavy, that can be really useful. And so this time we're just counting the breath for 5. You're still sending that top hip away. I'd lost it a little bit there. I don't know whether you'd noticed. Okay, and then we're going to do what I call the Cossack dance. I don't really know why. So it's knee to knee and you point the toe, send the toe to the ceiling. So you're internally rotating in this top hip socket. I'm still trying to keep my side waist off the ground. And then you turn the other way. You flex the foot, you turn the other way and you go heel to knee and you try and lift the knee to the sky. So now we're opening up in the hip. So you point knee to knee and you flex heel to knee. Point knee to knee, still trying to keep that top hip up, flex heel to knee. And again, point knee to knee, flex heel to knee. You can always move this knee down a bit if you can't get the heel to the knee. You're really trying to get that external rotation there. I bunged in another one for good luck. Okay, and then we're going to extend this top leg away. So you're extending the top leg away. See if you can tailbone tuck a little bit so the lower belly comes on and you're sending that toe, the toes away as much as you can. If you look down, you shouldn't see your leg and your toes. So often people are forward with this. That tends to be what people do. So you're looking down. Now, the other thing that I found is that particularly initially, it was really hard to find these muscles in. So we're looking for these muscles in the side of the buttocks. And I found it really hard to find them. So one of the things that I found was turning my toes down was helpful because my quads kept kicking in. Anyway, from here, we're going to do some little circles. So tennis ball size circles with the toes. We'll do 5 forward and then change it and do 5 back. Keep sending that top hip away, like stretching away with that leg as much as you can. Boom. Okay, point away. Then we're going to swing the leg forward with the point, flex the foot and swing the leg back. So point, bring it forward, wee, flex, zhuzh it back. Trying to keep the torso as still as possible. Point and forward, flex and back. Point and forward, flex and back. And again, I find this thing of like maybe pointing the toes down a little bit helps me find that glute medius muscle. This time, you keep your legs parallel in front of you and you go up and down. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Bring the leg in. Whew. Should be a bit like that. Pat out that side arse. Congratulate yourself on the situation. And then let's just roll onto our backs for a moment. Because the other thing that I find is because I've activated that glute so much, if I go straight onto the other side, what happens is that glute still seems to be really on and I don't activate the other one as well as I might. So let's just do a few windscreen wipers here. Forget that all happened. I love that. That's a Drew Hume thing. Forget that ever happened and just ease it all out. So I'm using my belly to come up on these windscreen wipers. So there's a bit of an effort in a tailbone tuck, which helps switch my lower belly on. And then you're like, creaky door it up. And then come back to center, parallel the feet, get them hip width apart, and we'll roll up into bridge. So you're tucking the tailbone under, the lower back flattens, you peel yourself off the mat, you send your knees forward, you drive the hips up with your bottom, and now we should have the glute max. If you want a bit of hamstring action and to make that a little bit more intense, without moving the feet, you draw them in towards the bottom, and that should really switch everything on. Find the back ribs first as you come down, and then zhuzh yourself all the way down. And if you want to, you could bring the knees in and just have a little rockety-roo. And then I actually just feel like stretching my legs up to the sky and doing a few circles there with my ankles, both directions. And then come on over to the other side. I do always encourage people in my classes to just go off-piste. It's really nice to see as a yoga teacher when you look round and people aren't doing what you've told them to do, because it means that they're getting into the sensations in their bodies and they're responding accordingly. So I really encourage you to do that. If you're doing something and it feels like, oh, I really want to do a bridge, which is what I felt like then, just crack on and do it. Yeah, just get into the for me, getting into the habit of doing that has really enhanced my practice. Okay, so now we're coming down onto the other side and you're doing the same thing. You're stacking the knees, you're stacking the ankles. You're checking this top hip and you're sending the top hip away. And then we're softening through this top shoulder. We've come off on the side waist, and then you're lifting the knee to the sky. Top knee lifts to the sky and then comes back down. Lifts to the sky. Check that you're not rolling. Check that your torso hasn't moved. Obviously, as the knee comes back down, it should be perfectly stacked still. Okay. And then you clamp everything together and you lift the shins to the sky. You're still sending that top hip away. You haven't collapsed down on the side waist. And then you go again. Okay, and then you let this top leg float and you let the bottom leg come down. You think about the shin and the foot being heavy. Just check that you are running parallel with the floor with that. And then we're going into Cossack. So you point knee to knee, you feel the hip, the movement in the hip going inwards, and then you flex heel to knee and you feel the movement of the hip going out. Knee to knee and point. Heel to knee and flex. Knee to knee and point. Heel to knee and flex. A couple more of those. Boom. Okay. Then you stretch the leg out. There's a tailbone tuck in that, so the lower belly engages. As you look down, you shouldn't see it. Pointing away with the toes. Send the hip away as much as you can. Like I like to try and get a sense of stretch in that hip. If you haven't felt your glute med, this side arse muscle, you turn the toes down a little bit. Keep sending them away and then start to draw little tennis ball size circles with your toes. Nice and small. and then go the other direction. Boom. Okay, and then we're swinging it all the way forward, flexing, swinging it back. Swinging it forward, flexing, swinging it back. Forward, flex, swing it back. Remembering to play with the position of the point of the toes. Like maybe that just looks like pointing them down 1 millimeter. Maybe it doesn't. Maybe it looks like pointing them up. I don't know. Play with it until you really feel the sensation in that side buttock. And then you're going forward. The legs are parallel. So think about that inside edge of the foot parallel with the floor, and then you go up and down from there. 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Bring the leg in. Give it a little pat. Maybe roll back onto your back. And again, a few windscreen wipers. I really like this thing where you take the feet wide, you let the knees fall over. You let the knees fall over to one side, and then you're pushing into the inside edge of that opposite foot and sending the knee away. So you get a wonderful stretch down the side of the body, but particularly into the hip. I like that a lot. And then come back up, head over the other side, do the same thing, boom. And then anything else that you might feel like doing to just loosen everything up after that. Maybe you do long like a pencil, you could stretch out long like a pencil, and then head over to the right for a nice side stretch. You could hop the foot over the leg. So I'm going to the right. I've hopped my left foot over my right, keeping my legs straight, keeping my back on the floor. So you're doing a banana. And then come back to center, head over to the other side. If you want a bit more, you just jump that leg over and you breathe into that. A rather delicious stretch, I find. Boom. There you go, my lovelies. That is a little bit of side lying arse action. Next one's coming up onto all fours, I believe. Anyway, enjoy that. I mean, everyone says this, don't they? Comment, like it. It does make a difference. So, if you can be asked, comment and like it. Thank you very much.